Hey everybody, Giselle Grenier here from ourplace.ca. Thank you for watching. In this video lesson, we're going to be working on a piece of escarpment stone, and I'm going to be painting a little impressionistic painting. I'm going to be creating an impressionistic painting of a chickadee. Now, I've already done a video on my process of creating a sketching study, experimenting with how to hold your pencil, and the thing ended up being freestyle because my phone went dead. I mean, you can even do this on canvas. I am going to do a video on canvas, but this one here specifically is on escarpment stone. So we'll go down here, and so you can see it here, and you know, I chose this one. I think Joe picked this one, I think, based on the shape, and so little bird's going to be right here. One of the challenges when you're painting on stone is all the imperfections, so you have to be okay with that. I mean, that's super rough. You know, you can find a good side. If you have a rock that you really, really like, but there's an imperfection in it that will totally work against you. So what you can do is you can use modeling paste, texture paste. If you have like a sand medium, you can do that. I don't know if using plaster will work. I'm not sure. But either way, you have to wash the stone, hot soapy water, rinse it really well, and let it air dry. And then do that, and as you start painting over your layers, put a layer of either matte medium or like a decoupage medium. I've got decoupage medium, but use a matte finish. That way you keep putting a sealer all the way around, and then that'll work. What I'm going to do is, so the rock's already been washed, so I'm going to be using the DecoArt Americana Premium line. I'm going to prepare the stone with white gesso, and then I'm going to use a very limited palette. I'm not even sure if I'm going to need that, but very limited palette. Ultramarine blue, quinacridone violet, Hansa yellow light, yellow oxide, burnt sienna, and titanium white. If you're using the DecoArt Traditions, the violet, don't use quinacridone violet, use red violet instead. So I'm just going to use my little number 5 bristle brush, and the gesso, I squeezed it out as it was. I didn't do anything to it, didn't thin it down, and all I'm going to do is push into the stone, because not only will this prepare the stone for painting, it's also going to fill in the little holes, but I'm not going to have to waste, I'm not saying waste, I won't have to use so much paint to cover up the gray, because the stone, the painting is going to be fairly high key, meaning it's going to be fairly light. If I left the stone like this and painted the chickadee, I would have to underpaint the chickadee with a few layers because the stone is so dark. So think of it if you're painting on a really dark gray canvas. So while I'm doing this, I'm going to challenge somebody specifically to get out that canvas. Cheryl, calling on you. And I'd actually like to call out on Debbie, Gail, Crafty Grandma. I've got these people in mind. I would really like to see you guys use those art supplies that you've been keeping aside, but primarily to push yourself out of the box. Use that particular art supply that you don't feel comfortable using just to see what happens. I probably shouldn't have called out your names, right? See, now you have to do it. Okay, so let's say you can't find escarpment stone. No problem. This particular design works really well on canvas. I am going to create a canvas painting, but I'd like to challenge you to use this opportunity, everybody watching, to do this painting on a substrate, what you're painting on something you've never tried before, something unusual. And of course, if you don't have stone, do you have a porcelain plate? Do you have stoneware? Let's say you have a stoneware set that you broke a dish. You have oddball ones, so stoneware plates. Just to get away from using a traditional painting on a greeting card or on a canvas or a piece of wood. Just use something different and see what happens. And see what happens, because then you can take this experiment once you've done that and then paint it on a canvas just to see, you know, just to see what happens. You can try different colors. So you can see I'm putting the gesso on pretty thickly, making sure I get all the holes. Now what I am going to do though, this project is going to be a little bit longer because of the amount of prep work, but I'm not going to waste your time showing you all the prep work. So I've got the layer. What I'm going to do is let it air dry naturally, and I'll apply a couple more layers, and until I've got a good coat, but it's going to be all the way around. I'm going to think that the person receiving this is not going to leave it outside, but I can't assume. I have to think maybe they will leave it outside. I could leave a note with it to say, please, you know, this has been varnished with outdoor varnish, but for best use, you know, keep indoors type of thing. You know, for something like this, I can see a hole in here. You can incorporate that into the design if you wanted to. Still do the bird, but use this and put I would actually glue a branch onto here. Oh, I think that would be a really good idea. A mixed media piece. Mixed media on stone. That's my next project. Okay, that's gonna be the next one. The next one after the next one. All right, so I'm gonna let this dry, and then off camera, I'll do the rest of the prep. And when we come back, I'll show you the sketch and you'll be able to follow along with me, no problem. And then we can go from there. For the supplies or for the paint, use what you have. So basically a blue, a violet, a yellow, some type of yellowy brown, burnt sienna, which is a core color. You do my designs, burnt sienna is one of the core colors, and then white. If you don't have titanium white, use gesso. I gotta go wash my hands because they're a mess. All right, I will be back with you probably tomorrow because it's supper time right now, and Joe will be coming home, and Mia come running up, and she'll sit down and she'll go feed me. All right, so I'll see you guys tomorrow. It's been a few days since I created the prep part. A whole bunch of things happened, so I also changed my mind about how I'm going to do the project. So let's go down here, and I've got the stone all prepped quite roughly, and I was thinking originally just make a diffused background, paint the bird, but now I want to create a little bit of a landscape on here. And I'm going to get my pencil, so I'm thinking where I want the bird to be is I'm going to crop it pretty tight. So I'm thinking I want him to be right about here with his legs here, and there's going to be some foliage all in here. But what I want to do is I want to create almost like a mixed media piece with this, and I'm going to glue in some actual wood branches on here. So I'm thinking like that. I'm not going to worry too much about detail right now because I'm going to be covering this up. So I'm thinking something like that. So we're going to work blue down, and I'm going to put a little bit of violet in here, and then we're going to create some foliage all along there. For the brushes, you know, use whatever you have. I'd say use the bigger the brush, the better, if at all possible. But use what you have. So I've got some flats here, and I've got some round brushes. I'm going to take some ultramarine blue right in here, a little bit of water there. I'm going to take a little bit of white right in there. And don't forget that as acrylics dry, they get a little bit darker. And if you don't have titanium white, use gesso instead. That works just fine. All right, so that's kind of purple, but that's fine. So let's get down here, wipe out the excess, and as I work my way down, I want this to get a little bit lighter. And then I'm going to pick up a little bit of quinacridone violet and start blending that in. And get a little bit more. So lighter, and a little bit more violet. It doesn't take much. I'm using the round brush because I really want the paint to get into the pores of the stone. I'm just thinking now, I'm using these brushes because they're not new. They're getting down to the I classify old. So I'm using them on rock. Use bristle brushes if you don't have a brush that you don't mind ruining. Right up here. And then what you can do is then just take some of that blue, go along the edges, and don't worry about matching the paint 100%. It's a rock. Don't worry about it. I can even go take some dark, pop that in there because I just like the way it looks. Even put some of the blue here. If you're worried about ruining your brush, then just use your bristle brushes. For the back, it's up to you how you want to finish the back. I may just take whatever's left over on my palette at the end and just put that in here. Make up a green. So let's try with yellow oxide and ultramarine blue. And I didn't want something too bright. I was even thinking about pulling out some, and I'm going to put a little bit of fancy yellow light. I was thinking of pulling out some phthalo blue, but I knew it would make a really bright green. I want something really muted. Get a little bit more yellow oxide in there. Let's put a little bit of white in there. There we go. So just get something in there, wipe out the excess on the brush, grab a little bit more yellow, and just going to tap in where the yellow is to the top of the greens. Creates little interesting shapes in there. Paint the foliage any way you want. Don't want to make it too light because of the white belly of the little birdie. So while that's drying, let's pop in a little bit of cloud. So I'm going to take just a little bit of white, and I'm thinking with a little smaller brush. This is a smaller brush. Doesn't matter the size that I'm using. Whatever size you're using is what's important. I'm just going to knock that down to a tiny bit of yellow. And then I'm going to wipe the excess off, and I'm just too much white. I just want to make it a little bit creamy, almost like a little bit of a sunshine. And you don't have to put clouds in here. You'll just have a nice little bit of a contrast with the bird. And then you take the white just at the very top. The clouds fade in to nothing on the bottom. Make sure you're working this way. I'm looking at the camera and make sure the stone's this way, the clouds are like this, but when you're looking on the video, this kind of leads the eye to make it look a little bit crooked. We'll keep working. Okay, it's sketching time. So thinking, I know I want the birdie's feet right about here. Okay, let's get his belly, so the body here. I'm going to make him pretty big. I didn't bring out a black, and I'm thinking I'm going to try with the chromatic black first. I'm going to do a test to see if I can get that chromatic black, which is black with color, to make sure it's going to be opaque enough. So let me just get that in there first, because I could always cover it up. Yeah, that's actually pretty good, because really you can't see much of this little guy because his head is black. So that's all right. Then we're going to dot the highlight. So I'm just going to basically take this, and I'm going to do little tippy taps to get started, because the black, I'm not sure if it's going to be enough, because ultramarine blue is more transparent. And I really wanted just to use the colors I had. I rarely use black out of the tube because it's really flat. And once we get the painting, then you'll be able to actually do a little bit of reshaping as well. I'm going to take white, titanium white, or if you're using gesso, doesn't matter. And I'm going to take a little bit of blue and a little bit of burnt sienna, and it's going to gray it down. Because there's nothing whiter than white, so we have to work with something a little bit darker of an underpainting. Then you can put the highlights on top of that. So if you had a mixed paint, you know what you can use? Payne's Gray. You can use Payne's Gray and then just with a little bit of white. And we're going to really just tippy tap I even went over the pencil marks, that's fine. So tippy tap. Pick up a bit more paint. I'm using the paint pretty dry. I'm not worried about going over the throat area. So remember, when you're working on the rocks, because it's so thick, you have to make sure the paint goes inside the pores. And I'm working the direction that the feathers are growing, that they're coming out of his little body. And I'm already seeing something I have to reshape. I have to reshape his head. So just underpainting. So use your reference photographs, or you can use the photograph of this one here as your reference, no big deal. So that's dry. I'm just going to make his head just a little bit bigger. I'm going to put another layer of paint in here. Get the underpainting of the throat. Depending on the brand of paint that you're actually using, you may find that you're having to change too, based on the opacity. So I'm just using the choppy strokes. Okay, and now I'm going to go take white, add it to that existing mixture, which is just going to lighten it. I'd say about 2 steps, maybe 2-3 steps. I'm going to come in here, and now my strokes, same strokes, but now I'm just making them to a little bit wider apart, allowing some of that dark to show through. Oh, you know what I forgot? Hold on. The defining line for the wing and the feather, the tail. So this is painting on the rock is super challenging. Holy moly. A little bit of water in there. It is super challenging. Just want to get some dark in there. And then the legs. He's going to be on a branch. And don't forget, acrylics dry darker as the water starts to evaporate. So keep that in mind. And I also have to bring the black down further. His head's too small. I'm just going to, the more layers actually that you paint with your wildlife, it gives you an opportunity to really overlap the feathers, the fur, whatever it is that you're painting, and it looks much more realistic. Let's see, I'm going to get some black paint, and I don't have the black for the premium acrylics. So I'm just going to use simple old carbon black for the Traditions, which is a nice thick paint. So I'm going to take some black and put it right in here, and take a little bit of that white. And let's get you reshaped. Oh, big difference. Big difference, big difference, big difference. Yeah, I'm not a fan of using black because it's so matte, so flat. So when I want to get something black like this, I will likely have to introduce some black into my chromatic black for the opacity. That was the thing, is I wanted the opacity. And that's just a decision that I'm making. There we go. Huge difference. Huge, huge, huge. Now let's dry brush a little bit of that in here. And dry brush a little bit of that in here. Because we're going to come back over with some lights. And just dry brush. Dry brush is, I'm not loading any fresh paint. I'm just kind of just rubbing the brush, letting the rock pick up whatever's left over in the brush. He's cute. I'm looking forward to seeing when I put the branch in there to see what it looks like. And so the color that white that I put on there, so I'm going to take more white, add it to that. Now coming in, another layer. Now even this is going to be even wider. Making sure that I overlap some of that black. Take a speck of water. Okay. And overlapping a little bit of this black. You don't want to paint every single feather. You're painting the indications of feathers. Whatever graphite's left over, or whatever you use as your drawing tool, you can just erase it. Just avoid going into pure white, because there's nothing brighter than that. So that's why I'm always adding it to the previous color. So let that dry for a little bit. The actual foliage is fine, but I do see some parts of the rock showing. So I'm just going to come in and do a little bit of touch up. I'm going to bring in a little bit more yellow in there. And just, I see where there's a little bit of the rock showing yet. And then from here, it's just a matter of just then building up the lights. So I'm going to come in with pure white. I could even come in with a little bit of yellow. Pure white. And just where it's the brightest. I have to paint this little beak too. Gotta do a little bit of touch up in there. By adding the water, you'll be able to get a lot more fluidity going, but it'll be transparent. Oh, so what happens if you happen to put too much of a certain color on there and it's not bright enough? Just come back in with the previous color just to darken it light. Just keep doing it with this choppy strokes, and you'll be fine. With acrylics, that's the beauty of it, is you can just keep overlapping layers. And depending on how rough that you want to create, the rock texture is creating some challenges in here, because the strokes, I'm looking at the strokes here, and the actual rock strokes are going this way, and my brush strokes are trying to go the other way around. So I did a couple more layers, and I got it to where I really like it, and then I brought out some branches that I picked up from the trail, and now it's just a matter of just composing something. And this was a big branch. I broke it up into some smaller pieces. And it's just to come up with something that's kind of pretty. So this could be completely dependent on what you're able to find. I kind of like the other one better. So it's just a matter of just gluing it together. I like that. It's all grapevine. Okay, let's see if I can do this without burning myself over the palette. I didn't bother using the Ryobi one because I knew that I was going to burn myself for sure. Okay, it does stick out a little bit here. It doesn't matter to me. But I like these little grapevine pieces here. I like that. And then right under here, when I was redoing the foliage, I added a little marker in there. Yeah, the glue's going to show up a little bit. No big deal. Just something a little bit different, just to add some other little elements, natural elements. So this is my first little mixed media piece of this type. And then you can go even further by adding little leaves in here and whatever you want. I'm going to do another painting down the road of a bird on a slab of wood and do the same thing. But I think this is really cool. Now it's a matter of just creating a mount for it. And you can basically, on the back, you can glue some wood or make a little easel. A little easel might be nice for this because this branch actually touches the ground. But the way that I chose the rock, I made sure that it was able to sit flat on this here. So just to give you an idea on the size. So this is what the size of what it is. So I hope that you enjoyed this. Give it a shot. So all you need to do is go out and find a rock, some paints, and out of all the paints, you could probably even eliminate quinacridone violet and just make your sky blue, and just go with, if you have a green, like a sap green or even phthalo green, that might make a bit of a better green that's brighter. I just added the Hansa yellow light to make it brighter. So I would love to see your piece. So don't forget to share a picture with me. You can do that at the private Facebook group or send it to me by email at artplace.ca. Links to both of those are on the website. And comment below what you thought of the project, if this is something you might want to try. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. That way you won't miss anything. And if you are a subscriber, thank you. And give me a thumbs up on the video if you enjoy it. All right, so I'm going to clean up now, get ready for my next video. And until I see you then, stay inspired.